Hello, everyone. A very good morning. I am Miss Aisha Siddiqui and a teacher from Arham College, a lecturer, and also an encourager. So, encourager is a new word used here because I like to encourage the youth, the younger generation, to have a more active way of studying these days as everything is online and it's become very difficult to carry out the online structure, right? So and few people are liking it, few people want to go back to colleges and schools and start with the regular life. But of course, of all this situation that is going on, it is not possible. So to encourage education in different ways is my motive, to have a more lively conversation. I'm not that lucky to have a one-on-one conversation with you all or a live conversation, but I'm recording this video so that it benefits you all in the best way. I'll be starting with the content today. I am doing English language, the additional, that is also known as the special English paper 2 for the SYBA students. Semester 4 we have started with, and we have till now completed. First of all, I would like to show you all, every time I show you all this book that I'm referring to. And then, yes, so we've started with the fourth semester. And the first topic of the fourth semester was My Last Duchess. So, by Robert Browning. So, we've already done that chapter, sorry, that poetry with everything required in it. Now, we're going to start with the second poetry, and that is Sailing to Byzantium. Sailing to Byzantium is a very, very famous poetry by W.B. Yeats. And this poet is a very famous poet. And first of all, we would like to hear and study about the poet before jumping to the poetry, right? So, yes, we'll be starting with it. First, we'll study about the poet. If you see on page number 88, also about the poet is given. So yes, we'll be starting with the poet first, and then we'll jump off to the poetry part of it. All right, so let's start with, I would like to share my screen so that you all have a more proper format of learning here. Here we go. First, we'll be doing about W.B. Yeats. His full name is William Butler Yeats. And let's study. So this is a photograph of his, a very old photograph. But William Butler Yeats is widely considered to be one of the greatest poets of the 20th century. So he belongs to the 20th century, and he's considered very, very, very great in his own work. He belongs to Protestant. So he was a Christian and he belonged to the Protestant type, Anglo-Irish minority that had controlled the economic, political, social, cultural life of Ireland since at least the end of the 17th century. So he belonged to a category that ruled his nation, and till the 17th century, this category of people ruled that place. Most members of this minority considered themselves English, who happened to have been born in Ireland, but Yeats staunchly affirmed his Irish nationality. So he actually, people over there, people who were born and brought up here, they actually said that they are English. That means they belong to the English people, the UK and all. But Yeats, this only poet who was very confident, he firmly said that he is from an Irish nationality, although he lived in London for 14 years of his childhood. So even though he lived in the UK with the English people for 14 years since his childhood, but still he kept his permanent home. He kept a permanent home there during the first half of his adult life. So he also kept a house over there, and Yeats maintained his cultural roots. So he did not leave that place. He did not leave Ireland. Okay, even though was born and brought up in a very different place, that is in UK, London, but still he kept his roots over there. And featuring Irish legends and heroes in many of his poems and plays. So he also featured many of the poets and different types of heroes from his own hometown. He was equally firm in adhering to his self image as an artist. So he also gave so many poets where he himself showed him as an artist. Okay, now this shows us that we should all never forget from where we are. Even though we go abroad, maybe we'll grow up and we'll move abroad and go to different places in the world, start working there. Maybe we'll even settle down there for a long time. But still, we should not forget our identity. What is our identity? We are Indian, right? We all are Indian. So we should never forget our identity. Even though we go anywhere around the world, we should always remember our roots. We should always keep a house here. We should always come back to our place and have our firm roots in the place that we live, right? We should never forget that. Yes, of course, it's not a problem going abroad and living and and all of that, but still we should make the name of our nation more worldwide and more proud with our own help, but never forget that we belong here. Similarly, this poet did the same thing. He never forgot his root, his identity, from where he grew up and where did he come. Now, this conviction led many to accuse him. Now, he mostly portrayed himself as an artist, so many of them accused him because of this. But it also unquestionably contributed to his greatness. Now, that shows that, of course, there'll be so many who are going to accuse you in life, who are going to say that he is not the right one. If you say that, if you are trying to do something good, they will try to pull you back, and they will try to say all the nonsense things about you and spread rumors about you. But we should not even care about them, right? We should not think what they're saying. If we should not even give an ear to what they're saying. We should only go on ahead and ahead and have success in life. Only with the help of success, the mouths of the ones who are going to accuse or who were accusing us are going to be shut. So it happens that, it's a quote that the person who has more enemy, that means he is more successful. So that is the reason that here also he said that there were many who accused him, but it only contributed to his greatness. So he became great because of all these accusations, right? So yes, it is important at times to have to know what you're doing, your work and all, but you should not give an ear about the people who are all saying bad things about you or accusing you for some wrong things. So don't even think and care about them. Just leave them and just focus on your work and focus on your career and become successful. Automatically, their mouths will be shut. Example, each accepted the modern necessity of having to make a lonely and deliberate choice of the principles and presumptions in terms of which sense of his experience. Auden assigned Yeats the high praise of having written some of the most beautiful poetry of modern times. So, what happened when people started accusing him? He started doing more. He started going on ahead in his career more and more and more on focusing on his career. The more he was assigned with more things and more work, he worked on it more hard, and finally he got victory. Perhaps no other poet stood to represent a people and a country as he was, both during and after his life, and his poetry is worldwide famous and read today in the English speaking world. Right, so it's also in our book that we're going to do today. So he has written it, and he's written many poetries that are famous, and not only in India but also all the other countries. These poetries are given in the books for people to read, and they're worldwide famous. So as I said, If people are accusing you, if people are behind you, do not worry about them. So I would like to share a story with you based on this, a very short story with a good moral. So there's an eagle who can fly high, very high, right? And no other bird actually dares to come near that eagle. But there's one little bird. Okay, there's one little bird who dares to sit on the eagle, and from the side it tries to peck his neck and try to trouble him. So there's only one bird who can do that. So what does the eagle do? The eagle does not even care that this bird is coming and troubling me. He does not even try to fight. He does not even answer. Okay, he does not waste his time on that little bird who's trying to trouble him. What does the eagle do? It actually goes on flying higher and higher in the sky till a height where the eagle can reach up in the sky, and that bird is unable to breathe. So the eagle is a bird that can go very high in the sky, and even where the oxygen is very low, the eagle can survive, but no other bird can do that. So he takes that bird to a height where there's no oxygen. And what happens? At this moment, this bird actually feels breathless and falls off or dies maybe, and the eagle goes on more higher and higher. What is the moral of this story actually? If you see, there will be people who will come and start pecking you here or hitting you there or trying to poke you, trying to trouble you, uh, after and after, right? So there will be many people like that. But what you need to do, you don't need to, oh, why did you say that? Huh? Why did you say it? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. These are not the words of a normal or a success person. All right. The people who are troubling you or they're trying to peck you, do not even look at them. Ignore them, leave them where they are, let them say whatever they want to say. But you will be the person who will just move high and high and work on your success and become success. And there will be a time when these people will fall off. You take them to their height and they will automatically fall off to your feet. All right, so it was a very small poem with a very good moral, actually, a story with a very good moral, very similar to this story that we saw of W.B. Yeats. Right, so the more people accused him, the more he contributed to his greatness, and therefore he became more successful. So this is a very good moral that we get from this poet. Let's read ahead about him. In 1885, an important year in Yeats' early adult life had come. His poetry was published for the first time. So, at a very young age, in his just adult life, like you can say 20s, 25, maybe, it's a very in adult age, not the teenage. When the teenage gets over and the adulthood starts, you can say it as adolescence, right? So his poetry was published for the first time in the Dublin University Review, and he began his important interest in occultism. It was also the year that he met John O'Leary, a famous patriot who had returned to Ireland after 20 years of imprisonment and exile for revolutionary nationalist activity. All right. O'Leary had a keen enthusiasm for Irish books, music, ballads, and he encouraged young writers to adopt Irish subjects. Now, what happened when he was in his adult life, maybe in the 1885? What he did, his first book was published. Where? In which university? In the Dublin University. All right. And at the same year, he met a very famous patriot who was known, like you can say, a freedom fighter of that place. And who was he? He was very famous and he was very good in social things. That means he promoted youngsters who wanted to work, who wanted to write, mostly in that specific Irish books and Irish, because he was an Irish, right? Even the poet we saw, W.B. Yeats, was an Irish, and he kept his root. I just now said he kept his root to his hometown, to his home place, and therefore he wrote many musics, ballads, um, based on his home place. And therefore this O'Leary actually promoted W.B. Yeats for his more work. Each who had preferred more romantic settings and themes soon took O'Leary's advice, producing many poems based on Irish legends. So, first, what did he do? At a very young age, right? You all are all youngsters who are listening to me. In a very young age, we all know that all more important things, the more important things that we feel are friends, love, and more romanticism, right? So, even in his life, as a poet's life, at a very young age, he wrote romantic stories or poetries, which had mostly themes based on love and poet and tool people who are in love. Mostly his poets were based on that. But after he met O'Leary and he took his advice from him, he started making poetries based on legends of his home place. So like I would say, there are so many movies, right? Some are love stories or love movies, then the others are based on legends. So if you see there's a love story, you can say, let's take an actress named Alia Bhatt, right? So she's done the first movie based on a love story, right? It's a triangle shown with a student of the year. So it has love, friendship, and all in it, right? So because she was very young at the age, then she started growing, and after people grow, they have more ideas to do rather than just be in the love story and friendship. They start growing up into more mature people, right? And therefore she took up stories of one based on the legend Razi, right? So the girl who had accomplished a very good mission, so she took up on that legend. Similarly, this poet has done in the same way. First, what did he do? He took up stories of love and friendship and romanticism as the themes. Later on, with the advice of O'Leary, he took up more legend poetries, and this gave actually a push to his career. What happened then? Irish folklore, Irish ballads, and songs. So he wrote a lot about the Irish things. As he explained in a notice included in the 1908 volume, so he also wrote a book where he collected works in verse and prose of William Butler Yeats. So all of his work and all of his proses and poetries are combined together, collected work. When I first wrote, I went. So what did he write in his collected work? His own words are given over here. Let's see what did he say. When I first wrote, I went here and there for my subjects as my reading led me, and preferred to all other countries, Arcadia and the India of romance. But presently, I convinced myself that I should never go for this, the scenery of a poem to any country but my own. And I think that I shall hold to that conviction to the end. So, in search of finding nice poets and nice stories on which he would write a poetry or nice themes, what did he do? He traveled a lot. Yeah, the name of the country is given Arcadia. So he went to Arcadia for a lot of themes of poetry. Then he came to India, and he says that India is a romantic place. So if you see the Taj Mahal, it is a sign of love, right? So therefore he came to India in search of romanticism, to write stories based on love and friendship, and therefore he found more. And but later on, what did he say? That after traveling the world, after going to so many places just in search of finding a story and a poetry, a theme to write on it, I will stay in my own place, and I will stay in my own home country, and I will write here only. I will find things and poetries here itself. Why should I travel for this? And this he is going to carry it till the end of his career. So, right, what we learn from it? Sometimes we feel that going outside is the best option we can, and sometimes we feel going out of India to earn, to have a job, or to study, we feel that's the best thing a person can do, and we should leave India and we should go abroad to have more success. But sometimes it happens that success is in India itself. If you find here, you're going to get more success than traveling and wasting your time and money on travel and all. So you are going to find more success in India. Similarly, it happened with this poet as well. As Yeats began concentrating on his poetry on Irish subjects, now fully his concentration was on his own country subjects. He was compelled to accompany his family in moving to London at the end of 1886. Now, later on, as he had his own family, he had to stay with his family. So he had to leave and he had to come to London. There, he wrote poems, plays, novels, short stories, all with Irish characters and scenes. Even though he was there, still, he wrote on Irish characters. In addition, he produced book reviews, usually on Irish topics. So everything he did was based on his hometown. In London, Yeats met with Maud Gonne, a tall, beautiful, socially prominent young woman, passionately devoted to Irish nationalism. Now, he met a very good and a very beautiful and a very passionate, right? A very passionate means even she was encouraged by Irish characters, and even she was Irish nationalism. That means he was from the hometown, from his own hometown. Yeats soon fell in love with Maud Gonne, and courted her for the nearly 3 decades. Although he eventually learned that she had already borne 2 children from a long affair, with Gon's encouragement, Yeats redoubled his dedication to Irish nationalism. He loved her a lot as she was Irish, and also she was very, very passionate about Irish nationalism, and she was very, an achieving woman. So later on, he got to know that she was already married, and she had children. She had 2 children. So late, but then he left the opinion of just going behind her, and finally she gave him an encouragement, more encouragement in his life, to dedicate upon Irish nationalism. Each Then he had a redouble of his dedication. Then he was dedicated more towards this nationalist play, and he wrote a play. It is known as the Countess Kathleen 1892, which he dedicated it to her. And Kathleen Holohan in 1902, which featured her as a personification of Ireland in the title role. So he actually wrote plays on her in the starting, and she gave him a lot of encouragement. Gon shared East interest in occultism and spiritualism, so she shared a lot of his interests as well. Eats had been a theosophist, but in 1890 he returned from its sweeping mystical insights and joined the Golden Dawn, a secret society that practiced ritual magic. Eats remained an active member of the Golden Dawn for 32 years, then becoming involved in its direction and at the turn of the century and achieving the coveted sixth grade of membership the same year that his future wife, Georgina Hyles, also joined the society. So finally, when he had joined the society named as Golden Dawn, he was there for a long, long time. He finally got his wife. Her name was Georgina. Although Eats' occult ambitions were very powerful force in his private thoughts, the Golden Dawn's emphasis on the supernatural clashes with his own need as a poet for interaction in the physical world, and thus, in his public role, he preferred to follow the example of John Keats. So we've already done poets on John Keats. I would like to name the poet that we've done on John Keats. Ode on a Grecian Urn from semester 3. We did a poetry of John Keats, and we also read about him. He was a great poet. Then a romantic poet who remained in comparison with romantics, even William Blake. So we've done even a poetry of William Blake. I'll just read out which poetry we did of William Blake. It was London, the olden time of London. William Blake, that was also in semester 3 that we've done. All right. Then we did relatively close to the material of his life. So This poet followed all these other poets as well. Just a minute, students. Okay. Yeah, I'll just share my screen again. Most of Yeats's poetry, however, used symbol of ordinary life and from familiar traditions, and much of his poetry continued to reflect his interest in Irish subjects. So most of his poetry had very, very ordinary life of day-to-day life and people from the day-to-day living, and not very highly prestigious people. But his interest was mostly based on the Irish subjects. During this decade, he also became interestingly interested in the poetic techniques. So he went into deep techniques of poetry. He befriended English decadent poet Lionel Johnson. They helped found the Rhymers Club, a group of London poets who met to read and discuss their poems. So he went into the club and he joined the club where all the different poets came together and discussed about the poetry. The Rhymers placed a very high value and craftsmanship and preferred sophisticated nationalism. So they all came together and they discussed everything. The club's influence is reflected in the lush density of Yeats' poetry of the times. So, because he went to this club a lot, therefore it was reflected in his poetry. He wrote a poetry, The Wind Among the Reeds. Although Yeats was soon to abandon that lush density, he remained permanently committed to the rhymer. So he liked it and he really loved the club that they were formed with all the poets, and he kept it in his life that he used to always go and meet them. Then, okay, just a minute, students. Where we huh. The turn of the century marked Yeats' interest in theatre. Well, finally, after all this, he entered theatre, and interest influenced by his father. So his father really liked theatre as he was from the olden time. He really liked theatre and he wanted Yeats to come into theatre. Finally, after so much from romanticism to Irish models and subjects, to a new life, then to a club, then to marriage, then to writing upon Georgina, to writing upon Gone, the love of his life. And after so much, all he landed up to his father's interest, and that was theater. A famed artist and orator who loved highly dramatic moments in literature. In the summer of 1897, the author enjoyed his first stay at Cool Park, the country Galway estate of Lady Augusta Gregory. There he devised with Lady Gregora as her neighbor Edward Martin plans for promoting an innovative, knavish Irish drama. Now, again, he had a neighbor who actually wanted to make an Irish drama, and he collaborated with them then. And then the drama, three annual productions of Dublin, including Yeats, the Countess Kathleen. Now, the success of these production, then he wrote many, many productions. The success of these production led to the founding of the Irish National Theatre Society. Then what happened later on, he made a couple of heroism, and then he wrote Ancient Irish Warrior Cuchulainn. He wrote upon him. During the first decade of 20th century, East was extremely active in management. He jumped up from theatre to management now, managing the theatre company. At this time, he also wrote 10 plays at a time. And the simple, direct style of dialogue required for the stage became an important consideration in his poems. So he abandoned the heavily elaborated style. So whenever he wrote, his poetry had very simple and sweet language for the normal people to even understand. He did not write it with a very complicated language. So we will be doing this poetry, we'll be knowing that it is a very simple language that he wrote. All right. The Wind Among the Reeds is favor of controversial rhythms, a lot of rhythm in his poetry. This transformation in his poetic style can be traced as his first three collections of the 20th century. It was the first collection of the 20th century. In the Seven Woods that he wrote in 1903, The Green Helmet and the Other Poems in 1910. Then in 1914, he wrote Responsibilities. Several poems of these collection, he used a very simple style and a subject. For example, a quote, he wrote it in 1912. Each wrote in a very simple poetic style. Then he wrote many mythological poetries as well. The poem concluded with a brash announcement: there's more enterprise in walking naked. This departure from his 19th century manner disappointed his contemporary readers. So many of his readers did not like one of his poetry that he wrote in the 19th century. Then he changed his style and he wrote The Lake Isle of Innisfree. He wrote it in 1890. So this is the way he went on in his life, and he wrote a lot of plays. Then finally, he became the president of the theater group that he had joined for 15 years of the 20th century. Then he was the president of the theater for 15 years. The Easter Rising contributed to East's eventual decision to write on Ireland rather than England. So one of his poetry also encouraged him a lot. He still wrote on Ireland. The very beginning, where he's in the beginning, he wrote that I'm going to write on Ireland and not I'll not be going to traveling to other places. I'll just write on my own homeland. And finally, he continued it till the end. So you can learn that he has carried out one, and this is the whole, you can see here, everyone, what is the link that I am referring to, and you can go on this same link and study about this poet, about full his life till here. What we learn from him, that we are dedicated, we have to be dedicated and do not focus on all the negativities in life, and we have to be dedicated, right? So what are we going to do now? We are going to search about him, have a nice research, students, and I hope whatever I did in this class was clear. The whole class was taken on this great poet, W.B. Yeats. And in the next class, we will be doing about the poetry. So we'll just see what all he's written in the poetry. And here also a small lines are written about the poet, so you can even go through over here. If not, you can go through online and find a lot of matter on this poet and learn about his life, because you should know about the poet. You're going to study his poetry, right? Now in the next class, or in the next session that I'm going to do, I'll be talking about the poetry that we are going to do, that is Sailing to Byzantium. All right. So I hope this is clear. Thank you so much, students. Stay home, stay safe. Please do take your vaccinations on time so that you are safe from this deadly virus. Thank you so much, everyone.